days to the 2023 NFL Draft, and we've got you covered on a super edition of Chicago Sports Podcast, Monsters of the Madhouse. Good evening, friends, and welcome to an epic Sports Night in Chicago, brought to you by TC's World of Wonders, Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, and Budget Cars. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet tonight's all-star panel of monsters. We have the mad scientist behind Chicago Sports Podcast, Brandon Trax Hyatt, the great American football fan, Matt Cooper from Louisville's Q103.1 FM, and I am the world's worst Mike Greenberg impersonator, Clee Campbell. Gentlemen, how we doing? What's the good word tonight?
What's up, everybody? We got Aaron Lemming in the house, man. I'm so excited to finally have him.
Looking forward to it, guys. Looking forward to it.
Nobody gets you more informed on what's going on with Chicago sports than the man in the know from 24/7 Sports and SB Nation, Aaron, the Answer Lemming. Aaron, my friend, welcome to the Madhouse. We, like Track said, we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad to be on with you guys. This seems like it's going to be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I know how busy that you have been over the last – actually, since I can imagine when the season ended back in January following the Bears. As you research and talk to people around the NFL, what's the general league consensus that you're getting, Aaron, on the job that Ryan Poles has done so far, revamping the Bears here through the first wave agency?
Yeah, I think the overall return so far has been pretty positive overall, right? I mean, the Bears were in an interesting spot, right? Because they had a ton of money, they got a lot of draft capital, and they had a really bad roster. So there's nowhere to go but up from here. And the nice thing is, as long as Justin Fields pans out, they got their quarterback. So I think that the general consensus, especially within the NFC North, I mean, you're looking at a division that's probably not going to have Aaron Rodgers in it. You've got, the Lions that are probably the favorites right now to win the division. This thing's wide open. So as we saw last year with the team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, a team can go from having the first pick in the draft and being the worst team, quote unquote, worst team in the league, to all of a sudden being a playoff team and winning the division. And, so I think there's definitely some optimism. I don't know that they're there yet, but again, the Bears have right now, they have over $38 million in cap space. They got the draft ahead of them. So there's still a lot of additions to be made.
I seen you tweet that. I'm surprised there's that much money left. I mean, usually at this point you get through the first few weeks, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, we're great that we went out and got Pernell McPhee and this other dude, whatever. Next thing you know, you're like, where'd all the money go? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and the Bears are in a weird spot too, because they have to spend X amount of their cash flow this year. They went in after the Al-Quadin Muhammad cut that they had to spend $153 million in total cash flow, not cap, but in terms of cash. So that could mean basically signing bonuses for any deals that they had, extensions, the draft, all the other fillers that kind of come along with it. I think when it's all said and done, at least, and again, this is kind of a loose calculation, I think they've got about $30 million left that needs to be spent towards this year. It is worth keeping in mind, though, that they do have until February of this coming year or this next year to be able to do that. So they should be fine. There's not really a giant penalty to it, but yeah, they're in a spot where they still got a lot of money and they still got a lot of resources, which could be advantageous come after the draft, depending on what happens.
Aaron, talking about free agency here, and you hear the rumors all the time right before it starts about like whispers of certain guys going where. Was there one guy that surprised you that they signed, and was there one guy that you were surprised that they weren't able to sign, like the name that was connected to them the entire time that you thought they were going to get, but they went somewhere else?
Yeah, so there's actually two. And this is, man, I heard these two names, and I think a lot of people did. You saw a lot of people talking about them that were tied to the Bears. It just felt like guarantees. And that was Mike McGlinchey, the tackle that ended up going to the Denver Broncos. And then also Bobby Okereke. And it wasn't with the Okereke thing, it wasn't just that he was, in Matty Eberflus's defense. I mean, they had talks. Like there was, let's just put it this way, Bobby Okereke's camp thought he was going to Chicago. And I think ultimately what it came down to was, they saw, that spot, whether it was Okereke or who they ended up signing in terms of Tremaine Edmonds and Edwards. And I think the thing is they saw Okereke as more of a Mike linebacker more of a Will versus a Mike linebacker. And I think ultimately going into this offseason, I think the thing that really surprised me was they went out and signed Tremaine Edmonds. It's such a big deal. I mean, you're talking about spending $18 million a year on a linebacker not even a year removed after they traded Roquan Smith, right? For a guy that they didn't want to pay $20 million a year. Again, fit and all that stuff goes into it. There's a lot of debate to it. But I think at least on the surface with the new regime, I think you can kind of look at it, at least with that Roquan Smith move, and say, okay, well, maybe they don't want to, maybe they don't value linebacker that much. Well, after free agency, I think we've kind of seen that they definitely do. And now they've really got to get the defensive line squared away. And I think they've got more work to do on the offensive line as well.
Yeah, it seems like we already just signed our engine. So when do you think we're going to sign our ignition?
Well, I mean,
the three technique,
Yeah, and I don't know. That's the problem, right? Is you look at it, and I mean, and I don't even know if I'd say surefire, but really the big move that they can make right now is not going to come in free agency. And that would be coming in the draft at number 9 overall if Jalen Carter was a fault. But again, you're talking about a guy that a lot of people have regarded as the best overall talent in this draft. And, well, I'm not really sure I agree with that, I'll be honest. I do like Jalen Carter. I don't know if he's as generational as people think he is. But there's a lot of character concerns there for obvious reasons. And it's not just as simple as the car crash and what happened there. I mean, there was a lot of stuff floating around before the combine when this all came out. And again, we don't have any ideas what's going on, so I'm not going to speculate one way or another. But what I will say is Ryan Poles was pretty clear a few days ago when he talked at the general managers meetings. And he basically said they're in a better spot in terms of culture than they were before, but they're not really in the spot where they want to be bringing in character concerns or guys that they don't fit, feel fit the culture. Again, we still have a long way to go in the draft process. I mean, we're about it'll be 4 weeks from tomorrow is when, the first round will be. But right now, I think you're kind of looking and you're saying, okay, they didn't sign anybody in free agency. This may be one of those spots where maybe they hit in the second or third round, or it may just simply be a thing where you're going to have some fillers. Justin Jones is still there. Maybe you get a few guys in the draft and you kind of hope something works out. But I don't know that big move is going to come at 3 tech.
And, you look at the numbers and we are mesmerized by numbers, right, in Chicago, because we have a few players that are amazing. They have 150 tackles, and this guy excels at interceptions. This guy excels at sacks, whatever, forced fumbles, peanut punch, boom, has to run it back. But let's be honest, the way that Eberflus approaches the defensive line and his defense in general, but most importantly, his defensive line, is he likes to keep filtering and substituting those defensive linemen. So you're not going to see those godly numbers by the whole. It's going to be like like they say, Aaron, with the running backs by all of them by committee. It's going to take them all in order to do that. So I'm not quite sure. Would you be surprised that we don't see our 3 technique that we're going to have for years to come this year and maybe wait next year? Or do you think that we'll go ahead and land them in the draft?
Well, I think that they're going to take a few swings. And again, I mean, just kind of looking at the numbers, Kalijah Kancey is a name that I absolutely love. And I don't know that I would take him at 9 overall, but I think if you're talking like middle of the first round, into the first round, I think that would be somebody that I would be interested in. The issue with him is he's 6'1". He's got really short arms. So length really
Where's he from?
doesn't. He's Pittsburgh. So he's the closest thing to Aaron Donald that Pitt has seen since Aaron Donald left. And again, I'm not making a comparison saying he's Aaron Donald because he's not quite as freaky, but athletically he tests really well. You just turn it on and watch him play, and he's got a lot of impressive traits. He's just kind of one of those undersized guys. But I think outside of that, him and Jalen Carter, I mean, you're looking at even in the second round, and that's kind of the problem where the Bears are at, right, is because they have kind of a later middle second round pick, and then they have a late second round pick, and they don't have number 32 overall, obviously because of the Chase Claypool trade. And you could see a run on some of these 3 technique type of guys, in terms of, just some of the other names that could float out there that they could go within the top 45, 50 picks. And it's going to be an interesting spot for the Bears to be in. Personally, I don't think they're going to draft Jalen Carter. I would lean towards them saying, hey, we're going to go after some edge talent. We're going to go after some offensive linemen. They'll draft a defensive tackle or 2. But I think that you're going to see more of a rotational type situation. And, maybe they get lucky after the draft. Maybe, Jeffrey Simmons is available for a trade. I feel like that's unlikely. Maybe DeForest Buckner. That seems a little bit more likely just because the Colts are kind of in a weird spot. But there's just not a lot of avenues. And I feel like one of the things that we have to remember watching this team is this is a full-on rebuild, right? This isn't something where, we've kind of seen this in the past where they kind of turn around and retool a little bit and kind of figure things out. I mean, they shed a lot of talent on this team over the last few years. A lot of aging veterans took on a lot of dead money last year. This is the first year of actually building things back up. It's not all going to get done. There are going to be holes. And unfortunately, I do think that the defensive line is going to be one of them. Honestly, my hope at this point is they can get the offensive line figured out. Hey, if they can score 26, 30 points a game at this point in time, then I think you take a bad defense and you kind of take the Lions approach. Okay, well, we need corners. All right, let's go out and, sign 2 or 3 of them, maybe even draft one, and I think that that's going to be the approach next year. But right now, you just kind of have to go with the strengths of what's out there on the market.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aaron, you bring up a great point too. No one really knows what the Bears are going to do at number 9, except for Ryan Poles, and he's got a lot of analysis to do over the next month. It seems like a lot of analysts are kind of thinking that the Bears are going to go O-line at 9 now. Peter Skoronski, the kid from Northwestern, is getting a lot. It seems like his stock capital is going out there. Mike Tannenbaum of ESPN has the Bears taking Peter at 9 right now, calling him a tough, dependable local offensive lineman, widely considered the most refined pass protector in this class. For you right now, what's your gut feeling on where they're headed with that number 9 pick? Will it be the O-line, given how much work still needs to be done there?
Yeah, I think it will. And here's what I'll say: my gut feeling versus what Ryan Poles is going to do is probably going to be a 180, right? Because I mean, even this time last year, they had those 2 second-round picks, and you're thinking, okay, well, they got to take a receiver at one of those 2 second-round picks. What do? They go defensive back. Oh, okay, well, that's kind of interesting, but yeah. So I would say right now, offensive line definitely makes the most sense, and I think part of it's going to depend on how the board falls, right? Because you have to look at this draft and say, if 4 quarterbacks go, the Bears are going to have some really good options in the trenches, right? Because I think you're probably looking at 4 quarterbacks, at least one. I would guess at least one DB at this point in time. I think Christian Gonzalez is a good bet. Then you also got, between Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, you got some names there, and then obviously the offensive linemen as well. I think ultimately, if they had their way, if they had it, if things go their way, I think that they would like to trade down a little bit. Not anything crazy, but I'm talking anywhere from, I'd say, like pick 12, pick 15, something like that, and pick up a little capital, whether it's in the 2nd or 3rd round. So that way they have a little bit more maneuverability to be able to get back up in the 2nd round. But ultimately, I do think it's going to be either an offensive or defensive lineman. If I had to put money on it today, I think it will be offensive line. Now, here's what I will say about Peter Skoronski. I think Peter Skoronski is probably overall, I would say he's probably the best offensive lineman in this class. I think the big concern there, and it kind of goes back to the same thing with Kalijah Cansey, is length, right? And I think when you're looking at a guy like Skoronski, I know a lot of people want to point to Rashawn Slater, but we're talking almost an inch in arm length difference here, right? Usually the threshold's right around 33 inches for a starting offensive tackle in the NFL, and Skoronski is almost an inch below that. So I think in terms of what we've heard Ryan Poles talk about, what we've heard Ryan Poles add at offensive tackle, I think you're looking more Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State. Broderick Jones is another guy, a little bit more raw, not as much starting experience, but he's also an athletic freak, and he's a little bit, to me, he's got a little bit more juice to him. He's a little bit more I would call him more of a mauler, but I do think that Paris Johnson Jr. is probably the safer bet there. So I think the big thing with Skoronski is if the Bears take him, I don't know that he's going to fit the profile of an offensive tackle. I think you're looking at more of an interior guy. And I just don't know if you can take an interior lineman or offensive lineman at 9 overall, especially with all the needs that you have right now.
Aaron, you just said it. You said about Ryan Poles in the draft last year, how he kind of surprised a lot of us taking a couple of defensive backs. And I'm kind of looking at it, and listen, I'm looking at the running back situation this year. The whole offseason has been fascinating to me because, I'm looking at Austin Eckler trying to go out there and try to get something. And, without him last year from the Chargers, I don't think they're scoring as many points. He's such a good running back. But that's just to show you how the running back situation is around the NFL right now. You see it all around about what the running backs are signed for. But I look at the tape. I've watched a little bit of Robinson in this draft, and this guy looks like a dynamic player to me. And I know you can go ahead in the draft and find running backs throughout the draft, but I feel like sometimes there's special players like this guy that doesn't come around very often. What do you think if they surprise us all and go the running back route and go after Robinson, especially if they trade back, especially if you hear the rumors they trade back a little bit?
Yeah, well, and that's definitely an interesting one. I will say this: I am anti running back in the first round. I think from a positional value standpoint, especially. I mean, look at some of the running backs that have gone in the first round, high first round over the last, let's just say 10 years. Not a lot of those guys last. And if they get in their second contracts, there's not a whole lot of good that comes out of it. Right. So I think that's definitely something when you're looking, especially high in the first round, right, where you're kind of like, we kind of want like an 8 to 10 year player, not a 4 to 5 year player. With that being said, though, I think that it does become a much more interesting conversation. Let's say that Ryan Poles trades down to 15, 18, and all of a sudden you're looking at, okay, we can go with the fourth best tackle on the board, or the fifth best edge rusher, or the fourth best corner, or we could turn around and take, one of the best offensive players in the entire draft. Now, I would still lean against it in terms of what Ryan Poles is going to do, but I definitely wouldn't rule it out. Here's what I will say about the running back position. When you look at, if you just kind of follow the money, right? Follow the money of what they've done so far this offseason. Travis Homer, not a big deal at all. Deontay Foreman got 1 year, $2 million. I think there's incentives up to $3 million total. And then obviously you have Khalil Herbert, who I love Khalil Herbert as a runner, but if you can't pass block and you can't catch out of the backfield, you're not, in terms of modern day running back, that's not going to get it done. So I do think that they're going to take a running back, and I wouldn't be shocked if it's decently high, maybe with one of their picks in the second round or the third round. I have this feeling, and again, we only have had one draft with Ryan Poles so far, so there's not very many trends to be able to kind of draw parallels to. But here's what I will say is, I do think that there's going to be a surprise pick or two. If it were me, I'd be going trenches the first 4 picks. Your first round pick, your second round, both your second round picks and your third round pick, those are going to the trenches. Offensive line, defensive line, get me a center, get me an offensive tackle, get me a 3 tech, and get me a defensive end. Ultimately, I think we may end up seeing a corner. We could see a receiver, but I don't. It's just tough, man. I think Bijan Robinson is a really good player. I'm an Oklahoma fan, so I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of Bijan Robinson, and he has irritated the life out of me as an Oklahoma fan. But just from a positional value standpoint, I don't know that it's going to be the smartest thing for him.
Aaron, do you think that he might go out and sign that receiver you wanted last year? Because I remember I was watching you and a few others in Twitter as we were picking, and I could tell you were a little frustrated with those first couple picks right away. I was too, man. I'm telling you, I wanted to get some lengthy receivers that
Yeah, George Pickens. Yep. No, George Pickens was my draft question last year. From about January on, and I know people get upset because there's definitely, for some people there are there's a little bit of after the fact, but no, George Pickens is one of my guys. Now, here's what I will say. I do think that the Bears should take a receiver relatively early. It doesn't need to be the first round. Doesn't even really need to be the second round. I think they do need to add depth, but I think if you're looking right now at just like depth charts as a whole, and you're looking at the NFC North, I think you can make a pretty good argument for the Bears having probably the best and the deepest receiving core right now, which is absolutely insane considering all it took was adding DJ Moore and push Mooney and Claypool down, and all of a sudden you're looking at it, it's like, okay, EQ St. Brown is a number 4, number 5. Bayless Jones is a number 5 or number 6. You add a good young guy to that group with some upside, and I think you're in good shape. So I'm feeling a lot better about receiver. Like I said, I think if they can get a starting offensive tackle and figure out center, I think centers, I don't trust the whole Cody Whitehair situation. I think if you can get those 2 situations figured out, you're looking at a pretty good offense, especially considering how deep this running back is at the draft, as we're talking about Bijan Robinson. You're going to get starting quality guys in probably the 4th and 5th rounds this year, maybe even in the 6th. We've seen it happen multiple times a year where you get these guys that even if they're role players, especially in a committee like what the Bears are going to be doing, that can have a lot of value.
Folks, we are talking to Aaron, the asset Lemming of 24/7 Sports. Go ahead, Trax.
No, I was just going to say I was just shocked and in awe as you were last year. Like, I was just thinking, let's go get him his guys to play with and stuff. And I was just like, defensive back and then safety. And I'm just like, oh,
Yeah.
wow, what are we doing? But I did see something that I heard in the meetings too, is that these guys are so well connected. The GM and the head coach are so well connected that the GM is actually listening to the head coach who is pro defense, right? So the fact that he went out and got his two guys right away, that tells you that there's something going on in that locker room that we're not used to seeing. It's usually been, John Fox or whoever against, our GM. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So it's good to see continuity there,
Yeah, well, they've talked about it. Matt Eberflus and this entire coaching staff has been involved with the scouting process, both on the free agency side and the draft side. So this is definitely more of a collaborative effort, and it's definitely something worth keeping, keeping in mind as we move forward with the rest of free agency.
It's okay to say collaboration now because they actually are doing it the right way, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Last year was or a couple years ago was a dirty word,
Yeah, I hear you.
I think we feel better that we got more, because I can tell you, living in a Steeler household here with my girlfriend, the diehard Steeler fan,
Mm-hmm.
George Pickens looks like a special player when you watch him play on Sundays. He makes number one wide receiver plays. He catches the ball. He's very tall. He looks like he's going to be very special. So I felt better when they got more in that trade. I was like, I hope we don't regret passing over this guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think with receivers, like, you can just kind of see guys that have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jason would probably know better than anybody, considering he's actually been on the football field. But I don't know. There's just certain players, especially at the receiver position, where you can just kind of watch them even in college, and they've got that it factor. And George Pickens was definitely one of those guys for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is Aaron Lemming of 24/7 Sports. Be sure to follow Aaron on Twitter. Also at 24/7 Sports, his latest Bears mock draft is up there. Aaron, great to have you, my friend. And let's bring in right now, with no further waiting, the wildly entertaining co-host of the No Name football podcast with his Bears brothers, Olin Kreutz and James Big Cat Williams, available on Apple Podcasts. He's tougher than a $2 steak. He's more entertaining like that. He's the one and only Big.
How you guys doing?
Good. How you doing tonight?
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming on.
No problem, man.
Yeah, our pleasure, J-Mac. It's I know you've been following what the Bears have been doing very closely. You've seen NFL teams rebuild both successfully and unsuccessfully in your time in the league and following the league. Can you give us your grade of Ryan Poles' redesign of the Bears roster so far?
Oh yeah, I think he's done a good job. With the talent that he's brought in. Obviously we had a young team. There was a lack of talent last year. I mean, we had some guys that could play, but we didn't have enough. And with him being able to bring in 10 free agents, I think the total is now, being able to bring in guys that can, one, help contribute to this football club. But the thing that I like that is he's stuck to his philosophy. He's bringing in guys that have talent to play this game at a high level. But the main thing he's been saying over and over again is, as you can see through the various interviews that he's had, is he's sticking to guys that can fit the locker room, that can fit in with the core group of young players that they have. And that right there translates to success, regardless of if you have a player whose athleticism and his ability is through the roof, but he doesn't gel with the locker room, then it's not going to work out. No matter what your scheme is, or no matter what you're trying to build, it's not going to work out, because the chemistry in this league and the success that you're going to have on the field is really determine, what you do in that building on a day-to-day basis. And that goes back to the culture, the development, the strength and conditioning staff, you can go on and on, to the food they're eating, to the type of training they're doing, to the type of development that these coaches are implementing into these players. That's what translates to success. So, I like that Poles is stuck to his guns, and he's bringing in guys who can fit the culture and of what they're trying to build. So, you bring in those 10 free agents, obviously you made the big trade and got another guy who fits the culture and who can continue to, demonstrate that standard that they're trying to implement at House Hall on a day-to-day basis. You bring in a guy like DJ Moore, who has all those abilities, but also has the ability to be able to produced successful season after season, regardless of who he's had at quarterback. And he's been a constant, one of the top, playmakers at the wide receiver position in this league since he's entered it. So I'm really excited, to him being able to do that in free agency and then have the draft capital that we have. So it's definitely been a good offseason so far. But in the words of Coach Flus and Poles, the work is not done. The work is only beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, J-Mac, a lot of roster building still to do. For you, what do you think Ryan's next move, free agent-wise, should be?
It's tough. I think he should stick to what he's doing. I know there's needs all over the board. Obviously, both offensive, defensive lines, there's a need. There's always a need for those positions. But, if he doesn't see the type of player he wants in terms of an offensive lineman or defensive lineman that fits what they're trying to implement there, with this team, then, you can't try to force a square peg into a round hole. They have to fit in terms of the scheme. They have to fit in terms of their character, and they have to fit with some of the guys in your building. So, I hope he brings in, some more D linemen, some more offensive linemen. I feel like you can't have enough of those guys, both sides of the ball in terms of those positions are the heartbeat of your football team. So, I hope he brings in guys that fit our scheme, offensively in terms of offensive linemen. And I hope he brings in guys that can get after the quarterback and stop the run on the defensive line.
Jason, I found it interesting. You were just talking about culture. I love that. Talking about culture and bringing the right people in for this could go for any type of work, any type of job in life in general. Have you been in that situation before? And you don't have to name any people. I'm just saying, have you been in that situation before where you come into a new season and a player or two comes in that maybe they were a high price free agent signing, but they didn't fit the culture and they kind of messed things up, or maybe another player left that went to another team that was a great fit for a culture, or whatever team we were playing on at that time?
Yeah, I've been around locker rooms where you've had guys come in as free agents and, they've had all the accolades, but they just wasn't a fit with the guys that we had in the locker room. And I've been on the other side of things where you've brought in a guy who's, a high priced free agent who comes in the locker room and just elevates that culture and that standard on a daily basis. It's been the right fit. So, I've had the opportunity to be around a lot of great players that join teams, and I had the opportunity to see them, enhance and develop that culture on a day-to-day basis. So I've been on both sides of the coin.
And you sit back and you watch the footwork, as the offensive line, and you're the first one back there, and you're looking, and a guy might get replaced or switched out. How long does that take for you to process to be like, all right, well, I can't be looking for old boy here at this spot anymore. I got to focus on what he's doing. So that way, if I get an opportunity to say, hey, you need to slide right or do whatever, or, you're not shifting your hips and squaring up right away, or getting out of your stance when you need to, and whatever, or, something that you could bring to the table to help a young man out. How long does that take for you guys to like gel and become, because I'm wondering right now, like, I know some of it looks broke, but I hear some of the offensive linemen that come on back when you played with, and the one thing that they said was they had a lot of repetitions that led to retention. And it's almost like, can you give these guys a little bit more time, or when do you know when it's like, this ain't gonna work? Let's remove here, and keep rolling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I lean on, obviously, my two co-hosts of our podcast, Big Cat Williams and Olin Croops, two of the best guys at the position to ever do it. And being around the type of guys that I've been in the huddle with, the thing that I've learned from those guys and I've seen is, like I said, it's the opportunity to gel. The opportunity to understand. You got to know what the man next to you is going to do. You got to know what his tendencies are. You got to know what he's looking for, and on that line, the communication is everything. If you're the center, you're communicating to everybody. You're setting the protection. You're identifying the mic. You're making sure that your guys on that line are going to the right man in terms of pass protection. You know what I mean? And then when you set the protection, when you ID the mic, that sets the protections for the backfield. That sets protection for the receivers in terms of, hey, if that Mike and that Sam come, it could change that receiver's route. Now I'm hot based upon whatever route concept or scheme you have implemented, you know what I'm saying, offensively. So, having that cohesiveness as an offensive line unit and having the ability to understand, to know, the person next to you, that right there is very important, and I've learned that from those guys and the guys that we had. You look at, like I said, the Olin Krutzes, the Roberto Garzas, the Reuben Browns, the Fred Millers, the John Tates. Those guys were always on one accord. They hung out together outside of the locker room. At practice, they were a unit. They were the first people out there on the practice field, going through things over and over again, and walk through, going through checks, going through what ifs, we call them. You can say, hey, on film we saw this, but what if this happens? And that always happens in this league. Every coordinator and every team knows that we're watching opponent film nonstop. So they're going to try to throw in a little wrinkle, or there's going to be something that you see in a game that you haven't practiced. So you've got to be prepared for that. And you've got to be able to make those corrections and adjustments on the sideline, in the spur of the moment from one drive to the next. And the teams that can make those adjustments, but not just make those adjustments, but make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of executing those adjustments, those are the teams that have more success than the others in this league.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And I think, but at what point do you know when it's, because I feel like we have to protect Fields now. So, you hear some guys that know, that are in the know, that have played like you. Come on, man, you just got to let them, like when when it's time, or are we just moving guys around, too much, or do you think that they've got a good idea of what's going on?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. With looking at how many times or look at the different combinations we had this year in terms of offensive line. It was, this guy was at right guard this week, and next thing you know, he's at right tackle. I mean, that's hard for the player as well. The player's getting settled in at a guard position, and now next week you're asking them to play, right tackle or something like that. So it's not as easy as you think. I've never played right guard or right tackle, but I know from speaking with my guys, with Olin and Big Cat, those things is tough. You're just moving over one position, but now, like I talked about previously, in terms of your responsibility changes completely in terms of pass protection, in terms of the run game, in terms of who you're picking up in the blitz. It changes completely. So that's tough. That's tough for guys to be able to do that week in and week out when you've been entrenched in one position and then they ask you to move to another position within a week's notice. But the key thing is, if you have guys that have that versatility, but also if they have the mental aptitude to be able to pick that up at a high level, now you have more things at your disposal, because now you can move things around and still have that communication and that cohesive unit. So, the longer these guys are together, the better they're going to be.
The reason why I'm saying this is because I was listening to the David Haas show on Take the North, and they were talking about that over at the meetings. They were talking to Eberflus, and they said that they are going to keep that new right guard, Nate Davis, at right guard, and they're going to shift Tevin Jenkins over to left guard. So, and I saw this last year, but like you said, case in point, they had to do something because their starting center injured his wrist or something, his hand. Yeah. So they had to put something on it and then shift him over to left guard because he couldn't snap, Lucas Patrick. Do you think that they potentially might do you see teams give you a fair chance and say, let's keep him around as a backup because we knew he didn't get a fair shake that year because of the injury, whatever, and we asked him to move around. He had a good attitude, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, I know we signed him on a 2-year contract, but to keep a guy like that in place that could play left guard and center, do you think that they might still hold on to him, or do you think that at the end of this year they might let him go because that rookie last year that got injured from Illinois, there you go. He's a local boy, and that looks like what they're picking him up. More local boys. Do you think that now all of a sudden we've got a log jam at center now, or what do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, it's hard to determine. It's so many variables that go into this. First of all, at the end of the season, when these coaches have their exit meetings with their coordinator and then their position coach. I don't know if they went as far this year as to have exit meetings with the head coach, But, these coaches, they're going to evaluate every snap that you've taken, whether it's 5 snaps, 6 snaps, or if you played the whole season. And they evaluate it because this side to determine what positions of need they need to improve this ball club. So, I know they've evaluated all these players. I know these players have had their exit meetings and they've been told, what they need to work on. These coaches will tell them, what they liked. So, as far as Patrick, I know he got injured, but I think it's a matter of, in terms of that evaluation, what did Poles see? What did Eberflus see? What did Getsy see from an offensive coordinator standpoint? Did he see enough that can determine whether or not, this guy can be a fit in our offense, but this guy can help us, in some way the following season, whether he's a starter or a backup, they've got to see the worth in their evaluation to determine whether or not they want to keep this player. Or, it can go the other way where they say, this guy was good. We got a small sample size, but this sample size was good enough to let us know that he's not a piece we want to keep moving forward. Now we're going to look to free agency or the draft to fill that void that we have from this player that we're going to let move elsewhere.
Okay. Fair enough.
Folks, we are talking to our good friend Jason Mckie of the No Name Football Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts. Jason, you brought up a good point, I thought, on Twitter of the work that the Bears have done in the backfield in this offseason. You have Khalil Herbert and Deonta Foreman, who you mentioned, Jason, really solid. He'll average 5 points a game last year. Deonta averaged 4.5 yards per carry. Do you think the Bears have greatly upgraded their backfield with the acquisition of both Foreman and Travis Homer?
I'm not going to say they upgraded it. I was a huge fan of David Montgomery. I feel like, Khalil and David Montgomery were 2 great backs. I felt like they complement each other real well. David Montgomery is a back that's going to move the chains. He's going to give you that tough yardage. And then Khalil Herbert obviously has that playmaking ability, and he excels, on our run scheme in terms of the outside zone. I think he runs it really well and has a better feel for it than a Dave Montgomery did. So I'm not going to say they upgraded it because I don't want to take any away from David Montgomery. I'm a huge David Montgomery fan. But I feel like, hey, you know what? If you lose David Montgomery to Detroit and you bring in a guy, Deonta Foreman, who had a lot of success when given an opportunity last year down there in Carolina, and who's shown that, hey, he can be a number 1 back and improved it based upon his production last year. I feel like, you lose Dave Montgomery, you bring in another guy who's definitely going to help that running back room, who's going to help with competition. They're all going to push each other, with Homer as well. Homer's a guy that can, he's a guy that has a lot of speed, a guy that can hit the home run, but a guy that can also help you on special teams. So, I feel like, did they improve it? I feel like you got more pieces that can help your offense in terms of running the ball. You were good. I think you were first in the league in terms of running the ball last year, one of the better teams. So, I'm not going to say you improved it because you're already one of the top teams in terms of running the ball. But I feel like, hey, you lose a guy, you bring a guy like Foreman in, I feel like hopefully there's not a lot of drop off there.
Jason, are you surprised in general? Because I was talking about this earlier. The league in general, the one thing that's kind of fascinated me about the offseason this year is the running backs and how little they've gotten and where they've gone. And Eckler, I brought up earlier, is a perfect example. I think is a great player. And you see his numbers the last couple of years, and he couldn't get the value on the trade market. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to work something out. I'm like, wow, that guy's so valuable. But I guess it's his age, he's going to be a little bit older next year. So what do you think of the whole entire running back situation in general right now with the league and how they maybe don't value them as much as they did? I mean, there's a couple of guys like Barkley and Jacobs with the rate. Those teams did not let them get away. But in general, what do you think the situation is in general with the running backs?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, they don't care about the backs no more. It's tough though when you look at how many guys, backs in this league have had success and that have been drafted beyond the 5th round. You look at like Isaiah Pacheco last year with Kansas City, a guy who was drafted, I think, in the 7th round, who came in and earned a starting spot and really helped one of the catalysts of that team winning the Super Bowl last year. They feel like they can get value later in the rounds without having to invest a lot in free agency or invest a high draft pick in terms of running back. So I think that's why, they look at it and say, you know what, you need in this league to win, you got to have an elite defense, right? You got to have an elite pass rush, guys that can get after the quarterback. And why do you need guys that can get after the quarterback? Because offenses are throwing the ball probably over 50% of the time in this league. you can get away with a back who can, doesn't have to be a first round guy. You know what I'm saying? Not like back in the day where you had to have that dynamic running back. Now they're using 2, even 3 backs at a time in offensive systems now. So I think that's why the value has slipped. There's not necessarily one back that's going to shoulder the load. Most teams are going to use 2. Some teams even use 3.
Yeah, let's not forget fullbacks like Jason Mckie aren't valued enough in this NFL either. Hey, Jason, I know you're a fan of the Bears pickup of PJ Walker from the Panthers. Really kind of fits that kind of same model as Justin with what he brings to the field. Is he really a sound enough worst case scenario insurance policy for Justin if something were to happen to him injury wise next year?
Yeah, I think so. PJ's been in the role that he's in, pretty much his entire career. He's been a backup, and when he's got his opportunity, has he necessarily lit the world on fire? No, but he's been consistent enough, and he's been a factor in which that obviously he was a draw for us and other teams who he's been with. I think the thing that PJ brings to the table is he's a pro's pro, and he's learned from a lot of guys ahead of him to where, he's always going to be prepared. He's going to be good in the locker room, and he's going to be the type of guy that can, be an example of what you're trying to build in terms of your culture on a daily basis. And when he gets in the game, is he going to be able to break a 50-yard run like a Justin Fields? No, because Justin Fields is probably, only a handful of guys that play the quarterback position can do that type of thing. But I think he's definitely an upgrade in terms of what we had before. If you look at what we had before, and we talked about this on our pod, if Justin Fields got hurt, and you had the backup quarterbacks that we had before, and I don't want to take credit away from them, but what were you going to do? You're going to have to change your whole offense to fit their skill set. You know what I'm saying? I think PJ Walker, has some of the similar skill sets that Justin Fields brings to the table. Are they as great or enhanced as Justin Fields? No. But I think it's way better than what they had to where, guess he doesn't have to make a wholesale change offensively to be able to run their offense when PJ Walker enters the game.
There's a superback.
Absolutely.
What's
Well,
up, John?
Jason,
What's going on, baby? How we doing?
How you doing?
Good, man.
Jason, what's up, Papa? Tracks.
How you doing?
Man,
How you doing?
What's up, man?
I'm good. I was watching that Bulls game. Bulls came back quick to lead. Yeah, now they're trailing by 8-9 at half, but that's all right. But
yeah.
Cleet, Matt, nice to meet
Still
you guys.
got time.
You too, Ben.
Hey, you too,
Oh, yeah.
Sean. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the triple threat of Chicago sports reporting. He is the one and only Shawn Sierra. You can follow Shawn on Facebook at Shawn Sierra Sports and also at the Shawn Sierra on Twitter. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us. We're visiting, of course, with our good friend from the Bears and the No Name Football Podcast. We've been covering a lot of things all over Chicago sports so far. Can we get your thoughts on the best move that Ryan Poles, in your eyes, has made so far this offseason? Obviously, he turned the number 1 pick into 4 first-round picks in DJ Moore. He to Pro Bowl caliber linebacker Tremaine Edmonds. But for you, where is the Shawn-o-meter at on the job that Ryan Poles has done so far this offseason?
So far, I think he's done a great job. Although I do think he might have pulled that trade a little too premature. I think he could have waited till draft day or pretty close to it, because at that particular point, I think there's a lot of pressure on people. Right? You call someone with a good offer. I think he could have gone 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 or 2 to 4, 4 to 9, or 2 to 9 after, so I think he, with that, it's going to be an emotional decision that day. All right. You got it. I think maybe he might've lost the second rounder in 25, but still got DJ Moore. And you know what? I would have been okay with that, because we still would have had some other stuff from Houston. So, but I mean, it's his first time. I mean, literally it's right around his first year. Just he 1 year ago, a little over a year ago, he just got the job. So he's newer on the job. So had he been 3 or 4 years into it, he might have done that. That might be the only criticism I have. And it's not even a big criticism of him. But you know what? I'll tell you what, he's setting the culture. The thing that I love about him is that he has a plan, and be damned whoever don't agree with it, he's sticking to it. All right. He's got a cap for everybody he wants. All right. And if it goes past it, AKA Mike McGlinchey, hey, sorry, we got, we'll get somebody else. He's very, very meticulous about the way he's going about his business, and man, I like it. And you know what? You know what? We're not used to it. This is some shit we're not used to, man. Bears fans, we are not used to this type of stuff. A guy who says what he's going to do and does what he says.
Yeah, definitely. He's old school. I love this. He's doing Frank Sinatra his way. Shawn, and Jason, can we both get your thoughts on these? Obviously, still a lot of work to do on this offensive line. When you look at what Ryan's done so far, and like you said, he stayed to his budget. He hasn't overspent on the line for guys he didn't think would fit in. What do you think should be the next move for the O-line, and what will be his next move for the O-line?
You got it, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, man, it's tough. You know, a lot of people say, obviously, tackle. There's a needed tackle, but there's needs all across that offensive line. And the thing you need is, you want to bring in a guy that can come in and start right away, but you also need depth. You know what I'm saying? If you bring in a rookie, whether that rookie's a first round pick or whatever, he's going to have to develop into a starter. Just because you may get that guy at number 9. Doesn't mean he's ready to come in and start at NFL level. You know what I mean? Has he faced NFL type competition week in and week out at the college game? Probably not. So, you want to make sure that whether it's a free agent or whether it's the draft, that you're bringing in somebody, who's going to work. And like I said before, who fits your culture, who fits your scheme, and who wants to be developed, because that's what it's going to take, development in terms of, making sure that player, reaches his full potential. So, I don't know what position they bring in, whether it's center, guard, or tackle. I hope they're bringing somebody that fits the culture and that's ready to work.
I think he's done a good job of that. He's done a real good job of that when dealing with the Orlando Brown situation. Not that he was bad for the culture. He just said it wasn't a scheme fit, And so, again, just because he may be the best offensive tackle out there doesn't mean he fits your scheme. And to spend money, needlessly on that because he's the guy or the best guy out there, he's staying away from that. He's made it clear, and that, again, that's what I like. I'm really interested to see about Alex Leatherwood. All right, this is a guy who's an Outland Trophy winner. Okay, 2 years ago, so you don't all of a sudden forget how to play football. All right, granted you may have a little more talent you're facing on a weekly basis than you did at Alabama, but you're still facing guys who you're probably going to face on Sundays when you're at Alabama. You don't win the Outland Award Trophy because you suck. Okay, so I don't anticipate him getting mono again. Okay, first of all, who gets mono? But that's either here nor there. But he lost 25 pounds.
Yeah.
All right. You lose 25 pounds. How much strength did you lose? How much quickness did you lose? How much explosion did you lose? You know what I'm saying? So these are the things so when he should have a full off season of getting back to his regular weight, his regular strength, his regular explosion, his regular quickness. Okay. So now he's got a shot to, and he might be that dude. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everything I say, I need to preface it because I say it on my show. Competition for everybody. Everybody. I don't give a damn who you are. Everybody. Even if you're starting right guard, starting right tackle, starting left tackle, starting running, I don't care. Bring in competition. Right? Because that's the only way this team is going to good. Because, Jason, you know as well as I do, NFL stands for not for long. One play, you're in. Yep. One play, you're in. And you can't have the drop off from the guy who's from the second guy, from the first to the second guy, be that great. So bring in competition. But I do think if, Alex Leatherwood, say, hey, you know what? We're bringing in a guy. We're drafting Paris Johnson, or we're drafting Wright, the kid from Tennessee, or we're drafting this is one other guy. I can't think. I'm not a Skoronski fan, but if we're drafting them, guess what? You want that job? You go fight for it and win it. And I love it. So I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to make everyone compete. And you know what? May the best man win. And you know what? You're going to have a rookie who's going to want to compete. You're going to have a guy who's a second or third year player who's going to want to compete, who's going to want to win that job, and they're going to be chomping at the bit, busting each other's ass in practice and staying on each other's in a good way, of course, but pressuring. And there's nothing better than competition because you build a bond, all right? And you know that this guy is as good as you. If he starts or whoever starts, if you go out, they'll go down, the guy behind you will be just as good when he goes in. So I think the competition is what I want. And I'm telling you, just keep an eye out for Alex Leatherwood because last year he looked good on run fits. All right, it's just he had a problem with the speed rush. Like Braxton Jones had a problem with the bull rush. He had a problem with the speed rush. So we'll see how he is with minus mononucleosis this year.
And hey, how great does it feel right now to hear guys from all around the league saying that they want to come play in Chicago because of our quarterback? Like, really? Okay, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Unreal. I mean, this is we're in uncharted territory for Bears fans. When was the last time that happened? I can't think of it. Or maybe with Devin Hester. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's probably the only person. You know what I mean? Because we didn't have anyone that electric. Like Justin Fields. Justin Fields. I mean, this kid. I think they got him some great weapons. DJ Moore thing is put him over the top. Lord have mercy. I think Velus Jones is going to be a dark horse for a very, very Velus Jones. I don't believe he's on the bubble. He's going to be a dark horse for a weapon, a big time weapon. And because you know what I see him as Tyreek Hill. Because if you guys remember when Tyreek Hill came in the league, he wasn't a good receiver. He was just fast as all get out. And they had him running crossing routes and basically chase me is what they did. All right. He's only okay as far as a route runner. They're just scared of his speed. All right. So they're going to use that. I think they should use Velus Jones in that thing. Crossing routes, short routes underneath. All right. Let DJ Moore go deep. Let Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet occupy the middle, and let Velus Jones run underneath. Catch him in stride, and then catch me if you can, because I doubt very many people are going to catch that joker.
Do you guys think that DJ Moore has like that old style mentality? Reuben Brown came on our show and he was talking about back in the day when they used to play that you weren't looking over your shoulder, worried about a guy coming to take your spot. You were trying to help that guy out to make the best version of him and to make your team all around better. That's what he was saying. Do you think that DJ Moore would do that for Velus to bring some of that out of him to make him, a better type player? Do you think that he's vocal enough to be that type of guy that we need as far as a receiver type boss or whatever you call it, leadership in the locker room?
Yeah, I think so. I think like it goes to the type of people that they're trying to bring in the locker room. And I know Coach Flus just said in an interview he had down there at the owners meeting, the three things they look at is one type of player, two, his style of play, and three, the man. So I think DJ Moore is the type of man they want leading that wide receiver room. And Shawn made a good point. Iron sharpens iron in terms of competition. So when you bring a guy in like DJ Moore, who's had a lot of success, who's proven that he's a playmaker, that's going to make guys like Velus Jones and, obviously he's going to push Chase Claypool, and obviously Darnell Mooney is going to want to come back and get back to his old self coming back from injury. He should enhance the play of those guys in that wide receiver room. It's just iron sharpens iron. You see one of your teammates out there, making plays and just out there balling every day in practice, then you got to elevate your play. But at the same time, DJ Moore, like you're the leader of that room now. You're the number one. So you have to take a young guy like Velus Jones, who didn't have the greatest rookie season, who had some mistakes in the rookie season, but he also did show some flashes of playmaking ability, his rookie season as well. So, you've got to, maybe take him under your wing and show him the ropes and, maybe show him something, on a daily basis that he can use to make sure that he, enables himself to be a better pro, next year. So, I like the overall move of DJ Moore being able to elevate the play of everybody in that wide receiver room.
I'll tell you what, man, what DJ Moore just did, the acquisition of DJ Moore, it elevated everybody, Jason. You're right, because guess what? Chase Claypool was a pretty damn good receiver at Pittsburgh, 5,000 yards in 5 years. All right. That's if he would be the Bears' leading receiver of all time right now with those yards in 5 years. Sad as that is, it's unfortunately that's a fact. Okay. Yeah. But and guess what? Guys had a game plan for him in Pittsburgh. Guess what? You can't game plan for Chase Claypool. All right. There's one guy that you have to game plan for, and that's DJ Moore. All right. Because if you don't game plan for him and you don't make sure he's bracketed or double covered, guess what? He's going to hurt you. All right, so that means that's that way. So now Chase Claypool, I expect Chase Claypool. I expect him to have a year. I expect him to be the Alshon Jeffrey to Brandon Marshall. All right, I expect him to go ham this year because they can't double team you. They can't. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Cole Kmet had 7 touchdowns last year, so they can't double team you. So they got to have him. Darnell Mooney's another 1,000-yard receiver we had. So you can't. The double team is going to stick to DJ Moore. It has to. Period. Which means that you're going to get a lot of man up coverage or single coverage with Chase Claypool, 6'4", with a 40-inch vert, Darnell Mooney, okay, 1,000-yard receiver, Chase Cole Kmet, and then Tunyon, their new tight end. All right, that new tight end, they're going to have a lot of 2 tight end sets, and I think that's going to be rather nice. So I think that this wide receiver room, because of the acquisition, it set everything set the pecking order and set it in motion. Now, Chase Claypool, you can have a great year because they're not getting double teamed. Darnell Mooney, you can have a great year. I think Darnell Mooney could be a phenomenal. I think he could be a Pro Bowl number 3 receiver. He can play the level because you can't double team him. Yeah. And he's just too talented. So this wide receiver room is good, and it could be great if these guys stick together.
We got a question from one of our listeners, value listeners. Who would you draft if you were in Pole's position right now?
Man, I went through that scenario so many times. I don't know.
I'm staying at 9.
I'm glad I'm not Pole's drafting in that position right now. I think with Pole's, the one thing that we know one thing is he's going to stick to what he believes in. He's going to stick to his plan. Whether us Bears fans like it or not, just because, hey, everybody's saying we need a tackle or we need an offensive lineman. If that's not who he has graded high on his board at that number 9 slot, that's not who he's going to take. He's going to take, I don't know. He may trade the pick. We don't know. That's the beauty of the offseason right now, us having, all this, all these free agents come in and, sitting where we're at in the draft and being able to acquire DJ Moore. It makes it fun. It makes it fun offseason. So I'm glad I'm not picking at 9. I don't know what he's going to do. I have no clue.
I don't know because who's going to be on the board? All right, does Jalen Carter fall? And people are like, oh, I don't want to touch him. I said, and it bothers me. I'm like, look, okay. People like they bring up his pro day, like, well, that's the best interview. I'm like, no. I said, granted, that's important. Yeah. Okay. I said, but you know what they look at? His game film.
That film.
All right. You look at what he did against Tennessee. You look at what he did against Florida. You look at what he did against SEC guys who are most likely he's going to play on Sunday. Look at what he did there. All right. That's just the final. That's just kind of like the bow on the package. Like, okay, good. He's a good guy. We'll talk to him. We get okay. But listen, and not that I'm defending him, but you got to understand. I mean, I was a teacher, so I worked I coached 15 years, so I coached a lot of kids who just a little crazy, a little wild, and they just needed to be reared in. All right, what dumb shit did you do at 21?
Exactly.
All right?
Oh God.
Okay. Exactly. You know what I mean? And hopefully for none of us, it didn't end in the death of a teammate. You know what I mean? Okay, yeah. He just did something crazy. I was over when I was at Holy Cross. I drove a girl I was dating had a Porsche. Dude, I put that thing 100 miles an hour on the Mass Pike. Are you crazy? You know what I mean? So yeah, we do dumb shit, and this was dumb. This was really dumb, and unfortunately, his teammate passed along with another staffer. Okay, yeah. Then he got arrested. You talk about embarrassing. You're at the combine. And you have to go back because of warrants issued for your arrest while you're at. They couldn't waited until after the combine. In the middle of the combine, the day before you're supposed to, interview with everybody. The D-line was supposed to interview people. You get a warrant. Now you got to fly back. All right, he's embarrassed. Don't get it twisted. He's embarrassed. All right. So his 9 pounds. You don't know how he's dealing with that, with the loss of his teammate, the loss of the staffer, the embarrassment. You don't know what he's dealing with that. Yep. So.
Look at the guy. Look at the guy tonight. Sorry to cut you off, Sean, but look at the guy tonight for the Bulls. He had to take a little bit of time out for some mental health, and that's real. You know what I mean? I know exactly what you're talking about. My mom passed. I dealt with some situations, whatever. But I mean, the fact remains is, like you said earlier, that kid still performed. When was Alabama's last game? A month and a half, 2 months ago. So how long does it take to get back into shape, Jason? And Sean, a month and a half or so to get back into a form where you was at when you were, setting the record books and everything and playing at not a professional level, but at that level D1 talent, Alabama. You know what I mean?
But don't forget, didn't that happen? Didn't that happen before the break? Didn't it? Before the bowl?
Yeah.
So when people were wondering, remember the semifinal game, even I was like, damn, dude, he didn't look motivated. He didn't look like I'm waiting for him to like ripping heads off and and spitting down people's necks. I'm like, man, he looked, but we didn't know that. All right, you got to deal. Your teammates is passed away. Another member of the football program has passed away. Now you see why he wasn't as dominant as he was during the year. So again, if he's there, it'd be tough to pass on him. All right, because you get him in the right spot. Because I'll tell you what, the culture that they're building over there, all right, at Hallis Hall is one that I really, really, really like. And I think that culture can envelop him and kind of keep him on the right path. Coach Eberflus looks like the kind of dude like, nah, dude, you're going to do it our way, all right? You've had some missteps. So until I can trust you, I think, man, I still wouldn't put it past him to draft him.
Do you think he would be a good coach for the job? Because I look at a guy like Lovie Smith, and I didn't know him at the level Jason did, obviously, but I read the book Tony Dungy, Quiet Strength, and he talked about one of his best friends in there a lot, Lovie, and and it looked like he could really be a mentor to a guy that's in trouble who needs help. You know what I mean? Mentor type guy. Do you guys see Eberflus being this type of guy to bring a guy in and say, I got you, let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so, because at the end of the day, if you want to get the most out of your players, you got to show them that you care about them as people first. You know what I'm saying? Right. And when you show them that you care about them as people, you care about them, their families, and you treat them as families, they're going to go the extra mile for you. So, I think that has to matriculate down from Coach Flus down to the coordinator, down to the position coaches. Tim Spencer was our running back coach. Now, he was a great running back coach, but he was a mentor for us. He was a father figure. He was somebody that we knew that we can go to on at any time and talk about things other than football. You know what I mean? Whether we were having a mental breakdown or things outside of football wasn't going our way, we knew that he wasn't just going to talk to us about X's and O's. He made sure that his door was always open, his phone was always on, because he genuinely cared about us as people. So when we got on that field, we did our best to make sure that we did our best to show that he was coaching us the right way. And the same thing with Lovey. We did our best to make sure that he was having success because we knew he cared about us as an individual, not just a player.
There's an old saying that players don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yep. All right. And when you get that, and Jason, I know you're a high school coach, so you and I'm sure you've made connections with many a player up there, and just like I did where I coached. Yeah. And man, kids, you know what I mean? And they'll run through a brick wall for you. You know what I mean? And that's what this guy needs. He needs someone that cares about him as a man, as a young man. Okay. Someone who cares about his well-being as well as the football player. Cause he's a stud football player. Now you just got to make sure that everything else in his life is on the right path. Okay. Because it doesn't matter what he does on the football field. Cause if he ain't right, if everything else isn't right in his life, all the money he makes is going to go quickly. He could lose interest. He could be consumed with everything else, and it could just have a horrible, terrible, terrible spiral downward. And that's not what you want. You want the guy to be good because he's a great player, and this is a way for him. And I don't know his situation, but for many, many people, it's a way out of the situation you were raised in. You know what I mean? So, hey, if you have a chance to make $30, $40, $50 million, damn it, do it. Yeah. Do it. You know what I'm saying? Do it.
Yeah, somebody in our group knew him somehow one way or another, and they spoke out and they spoke highly of him. The area likes him, they love him, and whatever. So I didn't hear anything bad about him. Matter of fact, they were actually shocked that it happened, and they're like, "What?" There's got to be something else, like you were saying, underlining factor, something that else that's going on or whatever. So I mean, who knows what's going on? But I tell you what, man. In order to look at, somebody just brought up, where was that? Mentioning Carter. I remember when we passed up on Moss, he torched us as a fan. That sucked, and he was one hell of a talent, Carter.
Yeah, he had that situation at Florida State that he and so people passed on him, and Laramie Tunsil. They had, the bitter ex-girlfriend posted that video, the draft day, or right, you know what I mean? So you never know. And if you think that you have a culture and you have a guy, that can embrace him and envelop him and make him feel wanted and cared for, man, because I'm telling you, that would take care of our health. I mean, obviously health being, not being a factor, that would take care of our 3 technique for the next 6 to 8 years.
Yeah.
And you guys have been lacing them up since you were knee high, you know what I mean? And all the repetitions out on the field, and you don't really get a chance to be a kid, you know what I mean? Because you're too busy chasing. It's something that you love and hold dear, but there's so many other things that are going on that you don't mature in other areas. And the one guy that could help you out might be years down the road, and it might be a coach that's a father figure to you because you never really had that opportunity to grow with your father. He might not even have that at home. Who knows? You know what I mean? So I'm not about that life to shame somebody for having, like you said, Shawn, earlier. You don't want to know what I did when I was 21, man. Yeah, I was in the Navy, but that's, I just got away with a lot more because I had a uniform on. You know what I mean? So, but hey, man, thanks for being on our show, guys. We love you. This is great to have both of you in the same. I mean, like Cleet was saying, this is a powerhouse, man. This is great.
Man, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. You guys do a great job. And
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
You too.
Right.
Yeah, we
You guys have a
appreciate it,
good
man.
night.
All righty.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, great to see you. Thanks so much, Jason. Thanks, Shawn. Great seeing you, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the triple threat of Chicago sports broadcasting. Shawn Sierra and our good friend, the former Bears star, Jason Mckie. As Track said, an action-packed night here on Monsters of the Madhouse, brought to you by TC's World of Wonders, Serendipity Ice Cream Parlor, and Budget Jet Cars. Wow, fellas, so much going on. I got it, Shawn, for you. You've been tracking all of this all week long, from this crazy Final Four to the Bulls trying to make a run at the playoffs to the open 24 hours away from the start of Major League Baseball 2023.
Baseball season.
It's a wild, crazy, beautiful time.
It's a beautiful time to be a sports fan. Beautiful time to be a Chicago fan. Whether you're a Cubs or Sox fan, some of us are smart, some of us are Cub fans. It's okay, it's fine. But it's truth be told, I'm probably going to be in Wrigley tomorrow, and I'm not going to go to the game. But a buddy of mine has a bar right on Clark, 3720 North Clark. So I'll probably just go down there. It's starting at 9 a.m. So I'm like, it means I got to get up like 6 to get down there, and then leave maybe second or third or fourth inning and head back. They say you can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning. So.
Well, then are you going to be able to watch the Sox game then tomorrow night? If you start that early, you got to kind of pace yourself a little bit.
Yeah, so I have my alarm set on my phone. Okay, so if I do need to take a nap, which I probably will, okay, they don't start till 6. So
I see where you're going.
I'm good. I'm good with that. So I'll have. I'm not going to be one of those jamokes who wears my Sox jersey and everything down to Wrigley. All right, because then I'm be fighting people and yeah, I don't want that. So I'll wait for that for Monday when I go to the Sox opener. I got actually got to buy a new hat. I need a new a fitted black Sox hat. I don't have one, believe it or not. So I got to get one of those, and I'm looking forward to. There you go, baby. There you go. Yeah, I got to get a brand spanking new one for this year. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be it's a pivotal year for the White Sox. Do you blow it up now, or do you keep this group together? Because if they perform, you're going to keep this group together because you have a lot of talent on that team. So,
Shawn, what are your realistic win totals for both the Cubs and Sox this year?
Sox 90 plus, Cubs 85 to 90. I'm telling you, people. The Cubs. Here's what I had on my show. I had Evan Altman from CubsInsider.com. If you're a Cub fan, make sure you follow that dude. He's on it, man. And the one thing that I was telling him that I've said, like, I'm not a Cub fan by any stretch. It's not that I even don't like the Cubs. It's just their fan base I don't like. Okay, but I'll give you the real when it comes to analysis and the breakdown of them when I talk about them. They did a lot of sneaky, smart moves. Okay, the culture was set last year with David Ross. All right, he's a World Series champion 2 times over. Okay, he's a leader in the clubhouse. All right, he was a leader in the clubhouse as a player. Now he's a manager. Okay, so he set the tone. He set the atmosphere. Okay, the culture, and then they brought in Dansby Swanson. Okay, World Series winner. He brought in Cody Bellinger, former MVP, World Series winner. Brought in Eric Hosmer. You brought in, and they brought some Thion, and they brought in one other hitter. All right, you're bringing in World Series champions. Okay, you're bringing in guys who know what it takes to hoist that World Series trophy. You're bringing in guys who believe in this culture. All right, and at Cub Convention, it made it so simple because they're more old school, very similar to like David Ross. So fitting in and feeling that energy in that clubhouse and in with that organization was seamless for them. Now, last year the Cubs had a lot of games that they were in that they shouldn't have been in. They won some games that they shouldn't have won, and I know they have a great win total, but they were never really blown. They weren't blown out in a lot of games. All right, and that's a testament to, and with the lack of talent that they have, that's a testament to David Ross. That's a testament to the players for buying what he's selling and really buying in completely. Now he's got talent. Okay, let's see what they can do with the bases being bigger. Here's one of the things that people don't figure it in. The bases are 3 inches bigger. Okay, that means they're 3 inches wider. So that means that's 6 inches less that you have to get to the base.
Yeah.
Okay. And when it's bang bang, all right. How many times do we have to? Were we seeing? Oh, we had to look at the review. They had to look at this angle. Look at that angle. It's a lot more open for people to steal, which is going to put more runs on the board. All right. The play at the tempo, the shot clock, the pitch clock, the no shift, the number of times. How about the number of times you can go to first base? So if he throws over twice, guess what? You got a big ass lead. That's a big ass lead with 6 inches shorter. Less distance to get there, big ass lead because he can't go over. You know what I mean? It's going to be they got guys who can run. Like my White Sox got guys who can run. The Cubs have guys who can run as well. Yeah. Watch Cody Bellinger, dude. It's a 1-year deal. Watch him. I looked at his swing during spring training, and I was like, man, that's scary. That's really scary because he's starting to get back to. It was back to the 2018, 2019 swing that he had that took him to the MVP. Yeah, watch his swing, and that porch and left for him and right field for him, he's going to visit it many, many times. I can tell you that 25 to 30 times at least he'll visit it.
Sean, I don't even think if those bases were 6 feet bigger, and I could still, former offensive lineman could get a single if I hit the fence. Like, oh, what's going on? Who was that big guy you guys had forever? It was just like. They keep signing him. He's like 45, 50 years old, big old guy. And he did a great job, man. You remember him? What was his name?
Not Bartolo Colon.
No, he was
Julio Franco.
Yeah, he was. I don't know. I can't remember his name. He was a big guy. But anyways, I was just like, wow, man, he keeps getting a job. They keep signing him.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited, bro. Baseball's here. It's fun. It's going to be a quick pace, and you're not even going to realize the pitch clock. It's going to be so. If you're a Sox fan, all games are going to be like Mark Burley games, which is awesome.
Yeah.
All right. The only people who get pissed at those are the beer vendors.
It goes so fast.
It goes so fast.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, bro. Looking forward to it.
Should be a group here. On both sides of town. Hey, fellas, before we call that, anybody have any final thoughts?
Sean, really quick with the White Sox, because I feel like this is going to be a very interesting, like kind of what you were saying. I like everything about this team right now. I like the lineup better than last year. I was a huge Jose Abreu fan, but I wasn't sad to see him go because I think Andrew Vaughn has the potential of being a superstar, and I like our manager. But these guys have got to stay healthy this year. Like Vaughn has to stay healthy. Tim Anderson has to stay healthy. Mancada needs a route back. If they don't, if one of these guys goes down for a while, I think it's going to be tough for them to win the division.
I think so. And it bothers me, and this is one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of kids playing multiple sports. Because listen, if you played football, you're not going to have these little ticky-tack, sissy-ass injuries. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You're going to be tougher. Moncada, he drew some ribs because he ran into a buddy. He ran into the left fielder. Like, really? Come on, dude. You play football, you get up like, you good, boss? You good? All right, we're used to that. All right, we're used to that. So I'm a big proponent of it. You're right. They got to stay healthy. They got to start living up to their contract. All right? The only guy who's living up to his contract is TA. And not even defensively, because how many times has he booted routine ground? But that's his Achilles heel is a routine ground ball. Every time it's a two hopper, I'm like, oh shit, is he gonna airmail it? Is he gonna airmail it? Oh, whew, thank God. If it's hitting the hole or it's hit up the middle and he dives for it, okay, he'll get him out because his athleticism. But when he has time to think and oh man, it's a scary thing. So he's got to get comfortable with doing that, because if he does, man, he can be a Gold Glove shortstop. Mm-hmm. All right, because a lot of times it's an offensive award anyway. So he got to make a few less errors, and then what he does, hitting 300 like he is on a consistent basis. Tim Anderson is it, man. He's good. He's it. He's the only one, like I said, living up to the contract he has. Eloy's got to live up to it. All right, Yo-Yo's got to live up to it. Lewis Roberts got to hit up to it. And I'll tell you one thing that I really, really like about our manager, Matt. All right, Cleet, are you a Sox or Cub fan, or you're not, or a baseball fan at all?
Well, I tell you what, I'm that weird guy, Sean. North side mom, south side dad, both Cubs and Sox.
Pick a line. Pick one.
I know. It's weird.
Pick one. Don't Willie Wass. Don't.
He's a Cubs fan. He's gonna go with the Cubs.
I think he's more Cubs.
Okay. Well, the one thing that I liked is that yesterday or the other day, Oscar Colas made a really nice play in right field. Okay, and then he got up. There was a runner on second or something, but he missed the cutoff man. Pedro Grifol got on him for missing the cutoff man. Okay, and that's the type of thing that I want. Attention to detail. A good coach, a coaching colleague of mine, I coached with him at Curie. His name is JJ Wright. He said a coach told him one time, he said, if you take care of all the little things, there are no big things. And you think about it, you're like, holy cow, missing the cutoff man is a little thing. How big can that turn if you miss the cutoff man? You know what I mean? How big can that turn if you don't get the guy over and you hit the ball to the right side of the field? How big can it be if you don't bunt? Hell, Shohei Ohtani bunted in the World Baseball Classic. Are you freaking kidding me? You know what I'm talking about? This is whatever needs to be done to win, you do. Good baseball means, okay, I know, Shohei, I know you can probably put it 550 feet, but I need you to bunt to get this guy over so the guy behind you can get it done. Okay, good. He lays out a bunt. This is what we need. We're getting back to the fundamentals. He's holding people accountable, and that's all I want from this White Sox team. Because now Yo-Yo, Lubob, I think Lubob might have the biggest issue because Lubob knows he's talented, and I think it's gotten to his head. So he's got. I think Pedro Grifol, if one of those guys doesn't run the first, like Renneria did, pull him, yank him, sit him down. Why? And tell him when people ask why he didn't run the first, he wasn't hustling. So you know what? I didn't think he needed to play the rest of the game. Period. Next question. Put him on blast. They need a guy. Tony, you know what Tony was? Tony was like the grandfather. You know, a grandfather lets your kids do anything they want. Oh, that's all right. Let them do it. Let them do it. What do you mean? You let me do that? Now you don't worry about it. That's what Tony was like. He let those guys do anything they want. You know what? Don't run hard at first so you don't get hurt. Are you kidding me? Don't run hard at first.
I know.
It's a ground ball in the hole. If you run fast, guess what? We got guys who can beat it out. But no, don't run because you might hurt yourself. Come on, man.
Yeah, we definitely need to return to old school Sox baseball. That's for sure. The Sox open up tomorrow, folks, against the defending world champion Astros. Already still in season, coming off a career 14-8, 220 good run average year. Will start for the Sox. Southpaw Framar Valdez will counter for the Astros. Cubs are opening up tomorrow against the arch rival Milwaukee Brewers. It's a beautiful thing. Let's play ball, my friends. It shall be awesome. Folks, we have sent out an SOS to the triple threat of Chicago sports reporting, Shawn Sierra. You can follow Shawn on Facebook at Shawn Sierra Sports. Also on Twitter at the Shawn Sierra. Don't forget to watch SportsZone Chicago with the great Shawn Sierra. My friend, it's been an honor and privilege. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, it's fun, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, man. Nice to meet you.
Guys.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range. Cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. slow, you can